I just recovered from a bad head cold. It hit me really hard and it felt like it derailed my whole week. Now that I'm feeling better, I wanted to share with you 5 practical ideas to come back mentally stronger after an illness. These perspective shifts and practical actions helped me stay positive and come back to training more stoked than ever.
Last Tuesday, I woke up with a sore throat, and it was one of those dry, scratchy ones where you just don't sleep very well. You know the ones? Yeah. So my energy was feeling a bit low, but I had a basically normal day of going about my business. I had commitments that I didn't want to miss out on, so I powered through those, which in retrospect was probably not the move. The next day, I woke up feeling like death. I was feverish, feeling too hot, but also too cold, and I had the worst sore throat that I think I've ever experienced. During this feverish time, I not only felt physically rubbish, but also mentally as well. In addition to getting a bit depressed about all of the various social and work obligations that I was going to be missing, I also started to think about my strength training. Why was this happening now, when I was just starting to see such good progress? Would this sickness take me backwards? Would I lose all my gains? Should I just suck it up and power through my workouts so that I don't miss them? Why am I so lazy and weak? Will I ever get to train again? What if I'm sick forever? Now, if this sounds overdramatic and even a bit delusional to you, that's because it was. But that's actually how I was feeling. When I get into a negative emotional thought spiral, especially combined with a high fever, it can lead to being quite miserable. However, I suspect that I'm probably not the only one who feels this way. If you felt the same, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And so while I doubt running a fever is ever going to be fun for you, I'm going to share with you a couple mental techniques that helped me stop wallowing in my own self-pity and reclaim a more rational, useful mindset. So there are 2 perspective shifts that I find really useful when I'm ill. The first is a lesson from Stoicism, that of the practice of gratitude. So when I'm feeling really sick, I need to remind myself that this sudden plummeting of my physical and mental state feels much, much worse than my normal daily life. Which, if you think about it, means that my normal daily life is actually pretty awesome. And I'm actually extremely lucky to have that baseline of physical and mental health that I do have. Taking a moment to really cherish that is actually an incredibly powerful tool in order to improve my mood and my thought patterns in the very moment where I'm feeling down. It's so simple that it actually works. The second mindset shift is that of the realization that getting sick is actually part of life, and thus of training itself. And as it is a normal part of training and life, I shouldn't be upset or devastated when it occurs. I should just plan for it. And of course, one of the main reasons I train in the first place is to develop a more robust health baseline in both body and mind. And I'm fortunate to be getting sick less in my 30s than I was in my 20s before I started training. But to think that that means that I'm never going to get sick is, of course, irrational. In the last year, for example, I got sick twice. And while it might seem silly to think about illness while you're planning a 6-week strength training block, if I zoom out and think about planning an entire year's worth of training, well, of course I need to imagine that there will be at least a week or 2 in that year where hard training under ideal circumstances simply won't be possible. So the tip is just to acknowledge that and then literally plan for it. And then when the inevitable illness does catch up with you, you can view it more as getting your sick leave out of the way so that you have more healthy and productive time in the future, rather than perceiving it as a tragic setback in your training. It's actually just all part of the plan. And finally, we need to remember that missing a few workouts will have no noticeable long-term effect on your overall progress. It's the consistency throughout the rest of the year that actually matters. The local highs and lows will be smoothed out over time, so there's absolutely nothing to worry about. I always find that the extra rest I took during an illness always more than makes up for the missed sessions, and I'm already setting new PRs in the 2nd week after being back from training. These 2 mindset shifts were transformative to me because they're simple, true, and powerful ideas. But you may be wondering, is there anything I can actually do while I'm sick in order to keep the wheels turning and keep the progress going? And for that, I've got 3 practical tips that you can put into motion during your sick time. And for all 3 of these, I would say that if you're at the absolute peak of your illness, I wouldn't force yourself to do too much. Really just focus on resting and trying to remain positive. So the first thing that you can do is simply enjoy the break. Take a mental break and don't think about your training at all when you're feeling the worst. If you're anything like me and you sometimes think a little bit too much about your training beyond what is productive, being away from training for several days can help reset the passion, avoid mental fatigue, and burnout. Number 2, when you're actually on the mend and have the capacity to take a little bit more action, you can use this time to do some planning. Did you just hit a plateau in your training? why not rewrite your new training plan? Or you could take the time to read a book on a new subject and do some research to get some new ideas to incorporate. Personally, I read all of Mike Mentzer's high-intensity training book over the 2 days that I was at home, and then used it to make a modified heavy-duty training plan for myself. I then started that when I was back to full health. It was really exciting to be introduced to some new ideas, which I could then implement and test out myself when I got back to training. Third tip is to do some physical activity proportional to how you're feeling. Movement can be great medicine, provided the dosage is correct. And be honest with yourself. Is what you're about to do likely to make you feel better, or is it likely to make you feel worse? So for example, on the first day, I just walked around the apartment and the balcony for a few minutes until I got a little bit tired. On the second day, I was feeling a bit better, and I went outside and went on a 15-minute walk in the sunshine, and as we know, sunlight and walking are both great for your health. The third day, I was feeling quite a bit better, so I did a short hangboarding session. This was fun, short, and because it only uses the small muscles of the forearms and fingers, it's not so systemically taxing. So let us know in the comments what you do to stay positive while you're ill, and how you get back on track for training. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope these tips will be helpful for you when illness strikes again, because it will strike again. So remember these tips for next time, and use them to stay positive and stoked. Thanks for watching, and have a lovely day.